I'm VJ Hamilton and welcome to the Autoimmune Reset, the place for you to learn how to thrive with autoimmune disease and feel empowered to take steps to transform your health to feel better than ever. You can start making changes today to improve your health. So with every episode, my mission is to share with you simple ways to up-level your diet and lifestyle with key learnings from my own journey reversing autoimmune disease and inspirational stories from those who have reset their autoimmune symptoms and are now thriving in life. I suffered from autoimmune disease for over 25 years and now I live symptom-free, and I wish the same for you as well. So thank you for being here and sharing this time with me. Now let's get started. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Autoimmune Reset podcast. I'm your host, VJ Hamilton. I'm a nutritionist, scientist and expert in autoimmune disease. And today we're going to be talking about how your gut health is central to the symptoms that you might be experiencing if you are in perimenopause or menopause. And this is a key time when it is so vital that you are taking a proactive approach when it comes to your health. And often we think symptoms of perimenopause and menopause are things that we just have to go through. But the truth is there is a link with different systems in the body, and in particular the gut, and that's why we're going to be focusing on it today. I was going to do this episode just on hormone balance alone. There are going to be things that I'm going to be talking about that will be relevant to you, whatever stage of life you're in, because I'm going to explain the link between your gut and hormones, because we know we need a healthy gut function. We know that we need our digestion to be optimal, to be able to absorb nutrients that we'll need for different systems in the body or in our immune system and producing hormones. But that's not what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be talking about the direct link between things that happen in your gut and how that affects the amount of hormones you have and the balance of hormones and how that relates to your symptoms, but specifically when you're going through perimenopause or menopause, because that's when your hormones are changing. And that's why we need to make sure that the foundations are so strong at that stage in life. And if they're not, then we are more prone to symptoms. And I'll be explaining that in the episode. So we're going to be talking about how your gut microbiome interacts with sex hormones, the role of enzymes in your gut, specifically beta-glucuronidase, and how gut inflammation drives systemic inflammation, which can cause symptoms of fatigue, brain fog, and hormonal imbalance. And these are all aspects and factors that are tested on the GI-FX stool test, which is the test that I use in my clinic. I use it with clients, and I also have my gut health testing package, which I'll link to in the show notes, which comes with a consultation, test analysis, and complementary health plan if you want to find out more about that. So let's talk about gut health and hormones, because your gut microbiome doesn't just help digest food. It plays a powerful role in regulating hormones, especially estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, which are all key. And during perimenopause, when these hormones begin to fluctuate significantly, your gut bacteria's role becomes even more critical. So let's focus on a group of gut bacteria that make up the estrobolome. And these bacteria are directly involved in metabolizing and recycling estrogen. Because when it comes to your hormones, you have to focus on 4 critical aspects. The first is how well you are producing hormones. That is changing when you are going through perimenopause and menopause. So we need to keep an eye on that, but we know that that's going to go down. The next is how well you are transporting those hormones around the body. And when you are producing hormones, you also will be making molecules that help to keep those hormones in balance. And when those hormones are binded to certain compounds, it means that they become inactive. And that's how your body regulates your hormones. So how you transport your hormones around is also extremely important. The next is how sensitive your cells are to hormones. And we see that a lot in insulin resistance. So when your cells become less sensitive to hormones, it doesn't really matter how much you're producing and how well you're transporting those hormones. If your cells aren't sensitive to them, then that becomes an issue as well. And then lastly, there is how well you are detoxing your hormones, because we produce hormones, we make use of those hormones, and then we detox them, and we don't want them building up in the body because that's when they can create a lot of damage. So those 4 elements are so vital when it comes to your hormone health, and they're the factors that I'm looking into when I'm working with a client, because I need to understand which area we need to target as a priority. And when it comes to your gut, really what you're looking at is how well you are detoxifying those hormones, because that's what helps you to keep your hormones in balance. But we're also going to be looking at how well you're transporting and how active those hormones are, because that's extremely important as well. As I said, from a production standpoint, we do want to support the endocrine organs, so the organs that produce those hormones. But the truth is, your sex hormones are going to deplete, and that's just a natural part of life. But how can we strengthen those other areas when it comes to your hormones? If your gut is imbalanced, then you are more likely to have issues with that detoxification part as well when it comes to detoxing hormones, but particularly estrogen, because the bacteria in your gut are going to help to metabolize and recycle those hormones. And estrogen metabolism is a multi-step process. Your liver first breaks down estrogen into metabolites, and then they are sent to the gut for excretion. So when we are talking about gut health, we really can't ignore the liver, because, as I said, that's so vital for that detoxification part. When it comes to detox, there are different phases of detoxification, and that's how your body detoxes. Estrogen is how it detoxes chemicals. It's a natural process in your body, but understanding that it's in phases is extremely important, because it gives you, again, more insight into where the issues are in your gut, but in your health, and what might be contributing to hormone imbalance. So when things go awry and your gut bacteria are imbalanced, it can mean there's an overgrowth of certain strains of bacteria, which is referred to as dysbiosis. And there are certain gut bacteria that produce an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase. And this enzyme is tested for in the GI-effect stool test. And when beta-glucuronidase is produced in high amounts, what can happen is it can impair estrogen detox, because beta-glucuronidase is normally a helpful enzyme as it aids in breaking down complex carbohydrates. But when it's overproduced, it begins to interfere with how your body is detoxifying estrogen, and it reactivates estrogen that your body has safely eliminated until it's got to your gut. But what happens is it reactivates that estrogen, and then it sends it back into circulation. And if you keep reabsorbing the estrogen that you're meant to be detoxing, that can lead to what is known as estrogen dominance, where we have a lot of estrogen in the body in comparison to progesterone. And it's just worth noting that even when you're in perimenopause and your hormones are depleting, normally what happens is progesterone goes down first. So if you are reabsorbing estrogen and your progesterone is going down, you're going to end up with an imbalance of estrogen, whether high or low, and that can lead to estrogen dominance. And symptoms of estrogen dominance will be heavy or irregular periods. You may have mood swings and irritability. You might find that you gain weight, particularly around the hips and thighs, and then you may have tender or swollen breasts. So these are the symptoms of perimenopause. And I think it's key to know this, and this is tested for on the Dutch Plus test, which is a hormone panel that I use in my clinic. And it's going to tell you the balance of estrogen and progesterone. And I think this is particularly important if you're thinking about HRT, because you want to look at that balance, because if you start taking estrogen, but you have an issue detoxifying estrogen and you're reabsorbing estrogen, it might not be estrogen that you need, it might be progesterone. And certainly speak to your doctor about that to understand that in more detail and to find out what is right for you. But you can also do the Dutch Plus testing through a nutritionist, and that's something that I offer as well. So now let's bring testosterone into the mix, because testosterone levels tend to decline during perimenopause as well. But if your gut is compromised, it can alter how free testosterone is available. And it's how free your hormones are. And when I was talking about transport, that is particularly important, because that's when they are active and that's when they can do the job that they're there to do. This disruption can happen due to something called sex hormone-binding globulin, which is often referred to as SHBG, and that binds to estrogen, testosterone, and other hormones to keep them in balance. And you can check your SHBG levels, and I think it's a really good marker to check. And I don't think many people check that marker. Because it's going to give you some insight into what's going on in your body, because insulin and other hormones are linked to SHBG, and as I said, it can have a significant impact on your free hormone levels. And when inflammation or dysbiosis is present, it can actually reduce SHBG, and that can cause symptoms like hair thinning and acne, which are often associated with too much free testosterone in circulation. So when it comes to your hormones, it's about balance rather than the total amount. And we also want to look at how much of that free hormone that we have. I work with clients who have PCOS, and we often find their testosterone levels are extremely high, and that can be linked to this SHBG. It can also be linked to insulin levels. So we're getting a clearer picture on what might be driving that and what might be driving their symptoms. So when it comes to your hormones, it really is a delicate balance, and your gut is absolutely central to that. And a healthy microbiome ensures that these hormones are metabolized and excreted properly. While when your gut is imbalanced, it means that that is going to be impacted, and that is going to cause those symptoms of perimenopause, or it's going to exacerbate them to a significant degree. And that's why working on your gut health is absolutely vital, especially if you are just about to go into perimenopause or you're in perimenopause. And it's always worth taking a proactive approach when it comes to your health. I am always working on my gut health, my cellular health, my hormone balance, and regularly checking in to understand if there are any imbalances that I need to work on, because we often leave it until we are having significant symptoms, and actually it is better to get ahead with it, because it is inevitable that this change is going to happen. But the stronger and more robust our body is when we are going through it, the less likely we are to have symptoms. It's not to say that you won't have symptoms, because that many of us will, because as I said, there are those significant changes in your hormone levels. But if you can get ahead of it and work with the underlying issues, then that can make a big difference as well. And I did run a free workshop called Nutrition Essentials for Healthy Menopause, which talks a lot about the nutrients which are absolutely vital for going through menopause, but also some nutrients that can help with symptoms of menopause. So I will put the link to that in the show notes if you want to watch that free workshop. So now let's talk about inflammation, because when we're thinking about the gut, when I'm thinking about gut health anyway, I'm always thinking, where is my client's inflammation coming from? Is it coming from their gut? And often it is, especially when I'm working with clients with autoimmune disease. But when we're working on hormonal imbalance as well, inflammation is absolutely key. The lining of your gut serves as a protective barrier, keeping out toxins, bacteria, and food particles, which are kept safely inside the digestive tract. But when that barrier is damaged through inflammation or dysbiosis, which is a condition which I'm sure you'll have heard of called leaky gut or intestinal hyperpermeability. These harmful substances can escape and get into your bloodstream. And then your immune system perceives these particles as invaders and mounts an inflammatory response. And that's where the problem arises. And if you're not breaking down proteins properly and you are releasing larger proteins into the gut, even though they are food particles, they can create an inflammatory response as well. So when I'm finding clients who are not breaking down proteins properly and there are proteins found in their stool sample, then this could be the reaction that is happening for them. So it's not a specific food, it's the fact that they're not breaking down the food. And then by helping them with the digestive process and supporting the organs that help to break down those foods, they can see a lot of relief from their symptoms. And that can also have a knock-on effect to their hormone health. When we are in this state where we have gut inflammation, we may have leaky gut syndrome. This can lead to chronic low-grade inflammation, and that is not just localized to the gut. It can become systemic and it can cause issues in other areas of the body. So how does inflammation affect your hormones? I think it's just good to know how this all links up, because then you can see the value of working on your gut health, for working on bringing down inflammation and seeing how that helps with your hormone health as well. So first, chronic inflammation can interfere with the production and regulation of that sex hormone binding globulin, which I said that binds to your hormones and makes them inactive. And it's a way for your body to balance your hormones in your body. It can also have a knock-on effect if it is not working effectively, that it can create imbalance. And that's going to give you a good idea that there is something amiss if that is happening. So when inflammation is high, your liver actually produces less SHBG, and low SHBG means there's more free estrogen and testosterone circulating in your bloodstream. And this imbalance can lead to worsening perimenopause symptoms like irregular periods, low libido, and even increased facial hair. So, for example, if you have Hashimoto's, that adds another layer of complexity, as hormone balance is also affected by SHBG levels. And I work with many clients who have Hashimoto's. They are going through perimenopause or menopause and they are having significant symptoms. And it's because as part of their sex hormone imbalance, they're also dealing with their thyroid hormone imbalance. And inflammation can affect that as well, because inflammation affects how your body converts thyroid hormones. When it comes to your thyroid, we're often looking at a marker called TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone. That's produced by your pituitary, and it is an important marker, and it gives you an indication of how much support your thyroid needs. And the more support it needs, the higher the TSH will be. So that's going to give us a good overview of what's going on with your thyroid. But when it comes to your thyroid hormone, your thyroid produces two types of hormone. It produces T4, which is the more inactive hormone, and T3, which is the active hormone. And that's when you're going to feel more benefit from your thyroid hormones. And what can happen is when you are inflamed, the T4 inactive hormone needs to be converted to T3, the active hormone. And inflammatory markers, particularly those produced in the gut, can block this conversion. So if you have dysbiosis, you're more likely to have thyroid issues, because that can block the conversion of T4 to T3. And a normal thyroid panel, when you are just testing for example, TSH, you're not going to get that level of insight. And that's why I recommend a lot of clients where I suspect that hypothyroidism might be an issue for them, that they test the full thyroid panel. And that again is something that I test in my clinic, and there are different ways that you can test for that. You can even get a test that you can purchase yourself to test for your thyroid hormones. And it's just a really great check-in, because I've worked with clients who have had alopecia, they've had their thyroid tested, And when we have done the full panel, we have found that they've had an issue with this conversion of T4 to T3. And that's where that insight is extremely helpful, because we know that their thyroid hormones might be affecting their hair growth, but it's not to do with their thyroid specifically, it's more to do with the conversion. And there are various things you can do for that. So when you have an issue with your T4 to T3 conversion, which is something that I had 10 years ago because my thyroid would be all over the place, and it was to do with my gut rather than my thyroid. The symptoms that you can experience when this is happening are symptoms of hypothyroidism, like fatigue, weight gain, and brain fog can be much more pronounced. So it's just helpful to see how all these things link together. And then also, when you have inflammation, it can exacerbate estrogen dominance, because a leaky gut allows for a toxin called lipopolysaccharide to get into the bloodstream. And this is produced by certain gut bacteria, especially the more unfriendly gut bacteria. And that can create inflammation. And these toxins can also increase the activity of beta-glucuronidase, which I explained helps to reactivate the estrogen that your body is detoxing so that you reabsorb it, and that can create estrogen dominance. So you can see how interlinked it is. So as much as when your hormones are imbalanced, you want to focus on balancing your hormones. Really, when we're getting to the root of it, we need to be looking at our gut health. And that's why when clients come to me and they are having hormonal symptoms and they ask me which test is going to give me the most value out of doing a hormone panel or a gut test, if they have some gut issues, even symptoms such as bloating, then I am more likely to recommend the stool test, because that is going to give us the root cause of their symptoms, and then we work on their gut and they find that their hormones balance as a result of that. So now we've looked into the root cause of the issue and how the gut is linked to the hormones, we need to focus on how we can support gut health that doesn't involve taking lots of probiotics, because as much as I support probiotics, when you take them and you don't need them, it can create more imbalance in the gut. And if you already have dysbiosis, it could add fuel to the fire and cause more symptoms as a result of that. But here are a few ways that you can support your gut health and improve your hormone balance. The first is to think about the amount of fibre that you are consuming in your diet. If you have not checked the amount of fibre you're eating, it is well worth doing this. And I checked my fibre intake on a simple app like MyFitnessPal, and it's just going to give you that insight, because a lot of people are not eating enough fibre, and it is definitely a particular food group that is often overlooked. And when you are doing more restrictive diets, especially when you're taking out seeds and legumes and grains, which a lot of people do when they have an autoimmune condition, because it can help bring down inflammation in the short term, then you can find that your fibre is lacking significantly. So again, we need to make sure that we're eating plenty of fibre. I particularly like foods like flaxseed, chia seeds, baked root vegetables, leafy greens, and they can really help to support a healthy gut bacteria, bringing in those commensal bacteria and making sure that we are feeding them the right nutrients so they produce short-chain fatty acids for us that can help keep inflammation in check, help with the energy function in the gut. So there are lots of reasons to bring in fibres, and they've also shown that, for example, flax seeds help to bind to estrogen and eliminate it from the gut. So fibre for me isn't just about how to aid motility of your gut function. It's also part of detoxification. And if you're working with a clinician, or you are working on your health and you're working on detox, and you're drinking lots of green juices, you're taking the right nutrients to help detoxification, but you're not focusing on fibre, then you are missing something, because fibre is an essential part of detoxification. So again, when we're looking at that acronym of PTSD that I mentioned at the beginning, we need to be focusing on detox as a priority, because that is the end point. And we need to make sure that our system is working optimally even before we think about anything else, to be honest. Now, there is a specific supplement called calcium D-glucarate. I always suggest taking advice from a health practitioner if you are thinking about taking any form of supplement. But this compound is found in foods like apples, broccoli and oranges, and it has been shown to help inhibit beta-glucuronidase. So when your beta-glucuronidase is high, this can help to inhibit that enzyme, which means that your estrogen is not going to be reactivated and reabsorbed. And I think when it comes to taking this as a supplement, as I said, always work with a health practitioner, but it's also good to understand your levels, because if your estrogen is low and your beta-glucuronidase is low, then you don't want to be focusing on taking anything to help bring that down. And some clients will have extremely low beta-glucuronidase, and again, that's giving me insight into what's going on in their health, but it just means that this reactivation and reabsorption of estrogen probably isn't happening. Now, I'm sure I don't need to advise you to eat more anti-inflammatory foods. If you have an autoimmune condition or a chronic illness, you're probably already thinking about that. But just to re-emphasize that eating omega-3 fatty acids, which are found in foods like oily fish, for example, salmon, mackerel, sardines. And sardines are great to eat during perimenopause and menopause because they have the omega-3s, but they also are rich in calcium because you're eating the bones. And then there are the plant-based alternatives like flaxseed and walnuts, and certain algae as well now that you can buy that has omega-3s in them. And that can help to reduce your gut inflammation. It can help to support the gut barrier function and help with systemic inflammation. And then there are key antioxidants that you can bring in, like turmeric and ginger, which are excellent for soothing inflammation in the gut. So focusing on anti-inflammatory foods, especially as you're going through perimenopause and menopause, is absolutely vital. Then we want to focus on supporting bile flow. And when I'm working with a client, when we're working on their hormones, I'm always going to be focused on the liver, because as much as the gut is central to hormone balance, so is the liver. And perhaps I can do another episode on that. But supporting bowel function is critical for eliminating toxins and also for metabolizing hormones. So incorporating foods like dandelion greens, or you can have dandelion tincture or dandelion tea, artichokes, or you can have artichoke leaf tea, and beetroot really helps to improve bile flow. And I am having either dandelion tea or artichoke tea at least once a day. I'm drinking beetroot juice maybe every other day, and that just helps to keep my liver and gallbladder healthy, which is especially beneficial for estrogen metabolism and also reducing systemic inflammation. And then we did touch on this, but polyphenols are a type of antioxidant, and they're really important for bringing down inflammation. So polyphenol-rich foods include things like green tea, blueberries, and even dark chocolates, and that can be beneficial for the gut bacteria. I was recently feeling a bit under the weather, and when I don't feel well, I always make a change when it comes to my health, even if I don't think the thing that I'm doing is particularly bad. But I love coffee, and I will always have a cup of coffee at about 10 a.m, just one a day. And when I got ill, I just decided, actually, I'm going to take a break from coffee. And I'll be honest, the first week not having it, I realised I'm probably a little bit reliant on coffee because I was feeling a bit tired when I wasn't drinking it. But what I started drinking in replacement was organic matcha green tea. I always drink green tea anyway. It's the first thing I drink in the morning, and I have a couple of cups of green tea. But now I'm having that instead of my coffee. So I'm having about 3 to 4 cups of green tea every day now. So I'm feeling loads better as a result of not having coffee, but I'm also probably feeling loads better because now I'm having more green tea. And it's funny, when we take something out of the diet and substitute it with something healthy, and I'm not saying coffee is unhealthy because it's probably fine for most people. I just find that now I've taken it out, I've realised it probably wasn't the best thing for me. And I've noticed a lot of different symptoms improve as a result of taking it out. But the knock-on effect of taking something out like coffee and bringing in something healthy isn't just about taking out the coffee. It's that now I'm I'm drinking even more of these polyphenols, and I feel like I've noticed a difference in my skin as well by doing that. And so these polyphenols aren't just great for your gut barrier function and your gut microbiome, but they can have a knock-on effect to other systems in the body. And I love it when my clients come back to me and they'll say that their friends have commented on how good their skin is looking. And that might be one of the first signs that we're seeing progress in their health, or their gut has improved, their bowel habits have improved. These small signs are so significant when it comes to your health. And that's always something to watch out for, because as much as I love coffee, I'm seeing some very slight improvements that if I wasn't as aware as I am, I might not have noticed. But because I've noticed those improvements, it's making me think I probably won't drink coffee now, even though I do love it, and I'm sure I'll have the odd one occasionally, but it's just not something that I want to be having every day. So that's something that I did. You might want to try that as well. And as I said, it just means that I'm drinking more green tea now, and there are so many different matcha blends that you can get, and I'm having one with collagen in it and lion's mane, so I have one of those every day as well, and it's got cinnamon flavouring. It's just absolutely delicious, and especially this time of year it's been lovely. So that is something that I've done recently that you might want to explore doing. And then if you have an autoimmune disease, it's crucial to be mindful of any dietary triggers which might be causing inflammation. And you can do a routine food sensitivity test. I offer one that doesn't just test for your food sensitivities, but also your allergy response, your IgE response. Because if you are reacting to foods like gluten or dairy, then that can worsen gut inflammation. So it's just good to get ahead of it. As I said, if you have inflammation in your gut, understanding why is absolutely key. There are also some vital nutrients like selenium and zinc, which are both essential for your gut health, but also your thyroid health. And as I said, that's quite interlinked when it comes to your sex hormone balance. And that can help to improve gut healing, but also hormone regulation. You can eat something like a Brazil nut every day because that's got a lot of selenium in it. And then there are zinc-rich foods, which are in seafood and pumpkin seeds, and that can help to increase your levels. It's also a good idea to find out what your levels are before thinking about any type of supplementing. And finally, I couldn't not talk about the power of stress management. I haven't really mentioned cortisol as we're talking about sex hormone balance, but your cortisol levels are absolutely key to your sex hormones as well. And if you are stressed and your circadian rhythm is out of balance, or you're producing a high amount of cortisol or not enough cortisol, that can have a knock-on effect as well. And that's the other value of doing something like the Dutch Plus. It does test your cortisol levels. It tests for your cortisone levels, your inactive form of cortisol. It also tests for your cortisol awakening response, which they are finding is absolutely vital when it comes to autoimmune health, but your health generally as well, and your sleep cycle. So that's interesting to understand too, and that plays into your hormones. So as much as the gut is central, there are these other elements as well that are worth considering if you have worked on your gut and you're still finding that you have symptoms, and that's how I'll be working with my clients. But some of the activities that I like for stress management are yoga. You can do that at home yourself, or you can go to a yoga class, doing meditations and journaling, especially if you have any worries and you just need to get your thoughts out onto a page. I find journaling can be really helpful. It can also help you understand how you're feeling, and if you are having any disputes with anybody, just writing it down and just seeing it from your perspective, but it can help you see things from other people's perspective as well. And I just find that a really useful tool, and I like to get into a routine of doing journaling in the morning. And sometimes that doesn't always happen. And if it doesn't happen, then that's absolutely fine. You know, I love a week where I've been journaling for those 5 days a week. And I'll be honest, that hasn't happened that much recently, but I'm planning to get back into that routine in the new year when things have calmed down a little, because it's always busy this time of year. I'm sure it's the same for you as well. But as you can see, the gut plays a central role in regulating hormones, especially during perimenopause. So by addressing gut health and inflammation, you can take significant steps towards easing perimenopause symptoms and improving your autoimmune condition. So if you're dealing with an autoimmune disease and you want personalized guidance, then you can also check out my signature program, which is the Inflammation Reset. It's designed to uncover the root cause of your symptoms and empower you to take control of your health. And if you have any questions about anything that I've covered today, feel free to pop over to my Instagram account, which is at the Autoimmunity Nutritionist. And you can also join my free group, the Autoimmune Forum. And next week, I'm going to be sharing with you the 7 root causes of autoimmune disease. There'll be a free guide for you, and I'll be posting each day next week, and then you'll have access to that guide. So that's going to help you to have a better understanding of what might be driving your autoimmune condition and what you can do for that. So thanks for tuning in today for this episode of the Autoimmune Reset podcast. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, and I'll be in touch soon. Take care. Thank you very much for joining me today on the Autoimmune Reset. I really hope you enjoyed the discussion, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. And if you liked it, I would hugely appreciate a review on iTunes, as it helps me understand what you like about the podcast and to help share the information with more people. I'm excited to speak to you next time, and remember, you have the power to take the reins on your health. So keep the faith and celebrate the small wins. Until next time.